Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to this special episode of Lazio Lounge. The Europa League draw is just out. The new format of the Europa League draw is not a group phase anymore. Lazio isn't in a single group. We are all together, but we know which team Lazio is going to play against. So, Alasdair, a very different format from the past. Do you prefer it this way, or was it better before?
Well, I think we need to wait for the actual tournament to start before we decide that, because I do always wonder when they do these huge tournament overhauls if the first year, there are problems, then they kind of tweak them later on. And I do wonder, like, the theory behind it is that you get bigger teams playing each other quicker and that you get a bigger variety, obviously, of opponents, more matches. I mean, the number of matches. One thing we definitely needed, Vittorio, was more football, didn't we? Like, everyone needs more fixtures on their calendar. So we've got more games. But I guess the thing that is nice about it, I think probably especially in the Europa League, is that you don't play the same teams twice. So that the 8 teams we've got, there is that diversity and you don't get bored by, playing some random Romanian team twice. So do you want to run through the teams, or how do you want to do it?
So Lazio has 4 home games and 4 away games. First game at home will be against Porto. That was pot 1. So one of the most difficult opponent, I would say, Alasdair, which I think it's a good game. Then we play away against Ajax, at home against Real Sociedad, away against Braga, at home against Ludogorets, away against Dinamo Kiev, home against Nice, and then the last game should be away against Twente.
It's not in that order. That's the order of the draw, but they're not going to do the calendar apparently until tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Porto and Ajax are the big names in there, I guess. But then again, Sociedad have been in the Champions League recently, doing really well in La Liga. I think I was just saying before we came on that I think it's one of these draws where it gives us a good chance to do well, which in the new format means finishing in the top 8. But it's not one that necessarily lights you up with excitement. There were some really big teams in there who could have been quite exciting draws for us. And Porto and Ajax are big names, but we played Porto a couple of years ago, so it doesn't feel quite as exciting. Ajax will be fun, but I don't think this Ajax team is necessarily as strong as previous Ajax sides. So it looks like a very Europa League draw kind of selection of teams to me. I don't know about you.
Well, I would say that if we're thinking about going forward, then this has been a very good draw for Lazio, right? Probably the most difficult team we're going to play is Porto. Real Sociedad is not that bad. All the other teams should be not easy, but achievable for Lazio. So definitely you have a fixture that is not that bad. Obviously, playing Tottenham, Man United would have been great. We probably would have the Stadio Olimpico full. I don't know. I'm nearly missing the opportunity to play against Chiro because Besiktas was in pot 4 and we're not playing against Chiro. We had the chance to play against Jose Mourinho. Fenerbahce was in pot 2, sorry. We missed that chance. Don't know. Even Midtjylland looked like a familiar team, but we didn't play. We didn't have the opportunity to play against them. So, yeah, probably more intriguing team we could have faced, but it's a good pot. It's a good draw, right, Alasdair?
Yeah, and as you reminded me just before we came on, Conceição isn't in charge of Porto anymore, so we don't have that link with them either. But those games, that was in the playoff round a couple of years ago, wasn't it? When we had Porto, and those are really tight games. I think 2-2 at home and then lost away. Ludogorets, I recall many years ago now, embarrassing us in the Europa League. So that would be one to get some kind of long-awaited revenge for. Just looking away, I mean, Braga Braga away means we get to play in that cool stadium that's like built into a quarry, so that's fun. Yeah, I mean, I quite like it. I think it's a nice list of fixtures. As in, I don't think we'll be bored by this list of fixtures, but it's not necessarily one that's going to light up people with excitement either. I just really hope the club makes a big effort for these 4 home games. Hopefully, Porto is a big enough draw that people will want to go. We speak about this every year, don't we? The Thursday nights when we're not in the Champions League, getting people into the stadium on a Thursday night has been such a problem for the club. And when it comes to Ludogorets, Nice, even Sociedad at home, if we really need to see the club, promotions, cheaper tickets, whatever it is, just find a way of selling this to people. Because it would be nice to do something in Europe. We say it every time. Europa League, obviously, it's a bit more achievable than the Champions League. But it's going to be difficult. We'll get around to the season so far, but I think Marco Baroni is already, seeing some difficulties with this Lazio squad, and I think it's going to be a big challenge for him to balance that with not just his first European campaign, but a new format that gives him even more games than before.
Yeah, to talk about the fans, let's not forget that this year Lazio made a huge change, I would say. In the season ticket, you could buy all the regular season ticket, or the one they call global, that included all the European League games for this first stage. So, for example, I did the global one, and so paying a little extra, I got also the 4 home games of the Europa League. I thought it was a nice idea. So hopefully for these 4 games, we'll have a lot of fans, because in the past you could have the season ticket for the Serie A games, and you can have sort of small season tickets only for the 4 Europa League games. So I think with this, we should have more fans in the home games. So this should be better. And then, I think fans are, I hope so, understanding that the Europa League has become more and more important for the club. So I hope they will push a little bit more the fans, the players, to give everything they have for this competition.
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see what Baroni's approach to it is, because it's a fresh set of eyes, and I guess with Sarri, obviously it will have meant something to him because it was the first trophy he won, wasn't it, with Chelsea, the Europa League, and I don't know, but he's a guy who's been at a certain level in his career. I think that squad was kind of sick of it because all the old guard who had been there for so long had played in all these Europa League campaigns that have come to nothing for the last 10, 15 years. But this is a new squad. It's a young squad. It's a new coach who's not got that European experience. So I think it'll be quite interesting when it comes round to the press conferences, to hearing what they're saying before these, even after this draw, to be honest. We're recording this immediately after the draw, so we've not got any reaction yet. But it'd be interesting to see what the kind of noises are about this, if they are, saying from the off how seriously they're going to take it, and not that it's just kind of some unwanted distraction. But it is going to be difficult. Like I said, 8 group games instead of 6. And previously, how many years have we been talking about the problem of the game after the Thursday in Serie A being a big issue? So that could affect 8 dates this season rather than just 6.
And I'm concerned, as you were mentioning, that our manager never had to cope with the European competition. This will be the first time. And so I'm concerned that he won't find the right balance for it, which could be a huge problem, right? Don't know. Do you think, well, the transfer window is not closed yet. It will close tonight at midnight if you're watching us on Friday. We don't know how many signings Lazio will do, but do you think at the moment the squad is enough to compete in both competition?
No, I mean, I don't think it's any different to previous years gone by. I think we've come into European campaigns with stronger squads than this one, for sure, and stronger coaches, and still struggled. So I'm not particularly confident that we'll suddenly find the balancing act this year. I do think, like I said in our season preview before, that the difference this time is I hope at least the drop off between what's considered the first choice 11 and what's considered the next 11 isn't as big. I don't think going, resting Ciro Immobile or Milinkovic-Savic or Alberto in the past, kind of leaving those guys out to rest, had a huge impact on the team because there was never anyone who could really step into their shoes. But this team doesn't really have a huge amount of stars in it. So I think you can take that as a positive or a negative, really. But one of the things is it hopefully means that if they start to get a bit of momentum, a bit of form, they can swap players in and out a bit more easily. I mean, maybe we see it that way now because it's a new squad. And as the season goes on, we'll begin to see more of a kind of hierarchy of who is where.
I don't know. I don't see it very optimistic that way. I mean, I think the quality of this team have dropped. And we saw it in the first two games, right? Lazio won against Venezia at home and lost against Udinese away. I thought the Udinese game was terrible. Our defense was dreadful. 2 easy, stupid goals conceded. And a little bit like in the past year, we struggled to score. We are really in a difficult moment, I would say. Tati Castellanos started well the season, scoring and playing well against Venezia. But against Udinese was the old Tati, right? Again, the striker that struggled to score.
Well, this is the funny thing of doing our first season podcast after 2 games, because we haven't really learned anything new, because we've had one quite positive home game that you can take big positives from, and then one fairly disastrous away game. And yeah, I think it's kind of what we expected, in that expected this to take time, that Baroni wasn't going to have an easy start, that the first half of this season might be pretty difficult as he tries to work out both how to get this team to play in his image and what his team is. And that might even continue today, because like you say, we're recording on deadline day. And for once, Lazio look like they might actually make some signings on deadline day, with big Gigot seemingly arriving from Marseille, and perhaps, who knows, even Foloruncio or someone. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I was really optimistic after the Venezia game about the way Tati played, because I felt like this is a guy who has really needed to respond to the new kind of responsibility that he's got, and he did. And it wasn't just the responsibility of being chosen as the number 9, being given the shirt after Ciro left, but also the fact that there are other options there ready. Noslin, I know he's been playing out on the right, but he can play through there if they wanted to. Dia, that night against Venezia, was on the bench because he just arrived. Castellanos has to fight, not just to prove people wrong, but to actually keep his position. And I thought his attitude and his approach was really good. But yeah, the defense is going to be a problem if it continues like that, because Casale's basically been sold off the back of that game in Udine.
Yeah, what do you think about this situation? Casale on loan to Bologna and Gigot arriving. Did we need the first 2 games of the season to understand that Casale is not playing at the level of the first year at Rome? And Fabiani said, we're not going to sign players over 30, and then you go and sign a 31 years old defender who was out of the squad in Marseille, who doesn't look a game changer, right?
No, he looks like quite an old school Lazio centre-back signing, like
Novaretti style.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see how he does, given the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, it is a shame that Casale, who came in as a promising youngster and had a very good first season, that it looks like it's ending this way, because I was saying quite optimistically in our season preview there are a bunch of guys beyond the new signings who really have a chance here to prove themselves, who really have an opportunity to change people's minds about them under a new coach and in a new era. And Casale was one of those guys. And what's more, he got the backing of Baroni to actually be the starting centre back in these games. And he blew it, or whatever has happened in training on top of these games. He's clearly not convinced people that he's the guy. And I don't think we should point all the fingers of blame at Casale, because I think Romagnoli has not been good enough. And that's another thing we said before the season. It is time for that guy to step up big time. He's one of the most experienced guys in this team. He's a Laziale. He should be pushing for that captaincy. He should be doing everything, leading by example. And he's not started well either.
No, because the second goal, that is probably even worse than the first one, Casale was out. So you can blame Guendouzi a lot for that. But the same thing, Patrick and Romagnoli were sleeping or thinking about something else. So we have big issue there. And I'm not thinking that Gigot could be the solution to our problems. So, yeah, maybe after Lazio Milan, we can do a review of the transfer market of Lazio. But because who knows? Just pop out that Cataldi should be leaving to go to Firenze. He agreed a deal with Fiorentina. So I guess after this, we're going to try to sign Foloruscio. But Alasdair, I don't think Foloruscio is, again, what we were looking for. I think we need quality there in the midfield that we lost without Luis Alberto, Kamada, Felipe Anderson. And I don't think that Foloruscio brings quality. He definitely brings physicality, speed, etc. But we don't have quality. Plus, Danilo Cataldi was probably the only one with Rovella who could play in that position in front of the defense in the 4-3-3. Don't think Foloruscio can play there. So now, at the moment, sending Cataldi away, we have only Rovella that can start in that position, right?
Well, Vecino's been used there by Sarri as well. I don't think it's his natural role, and I think he plays that role very differently. So, yeah, you're right. It depends what Baroni wants from that kind of pivot player. If he wants someone who recycles possession and keeps the ball and is, more of a classic regista, I guess, like Rovella is, or Vecino offers something a bit different. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's strange to be 2 games in and still not really clearly see what this team is trying to do yet. I think that's well, it's not strange to see. I think we did expect it will need time, but there's not an obvious identity, I don't think. I think it's been a bit hit or miss in terms of the impact of the new players so far. Deli Bashiro really impressed me in that first game against Venezia. I think
not that much in the second, I would say.
Yeah, not so much in the second. Well, that's what I was going to say. Like Noslin, I thought had a decent game against Venezia too, but we have to remember that Venezia at home is probably going to be one of the easiest games in Serie A this season. And even then, they were really asking questions in that second half and not making life very easy for us. So, yeah, I think a lot is going to become clearer probably on Saturday night against Milan, because this is the first opportunity, first big game. They've had a couple of games to warm up, to get an idea. And this is when the spotlight is really on them to perform and to respond. And the spotlight is on Baroni to tell us what kind of a coach he is, how he can motivate this team, how he can tactically try and outsmart Paulo Fonseca.
Before we switch to Lazio Milan, do you think that this youngster like Dele Bashiru, Chauna, Dia, etc., Noslin will take the Europa League much better as a competition rather than we did in the past with Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson, Ciro Immobile? Do you think having these youngsters coming in, they want to prove in a European competition, their level. And adding physicality, I think that could help in a European competition more than in Serie A.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, that's what I was saying at the start. I mean, I think having a new coach and group of players who are new to all this, that is the flip side of it. You might say that their lack of experience is an issue, but on the other side, it could kill off that apathy that has been, that's completely surrounded Lazio in the Europa League in recent years, not just the squad, but the fans. We've talked about the bad crowds, and the group stage of the Europa League has been just a complete dead zone, really, in recent years. Yeah. So I do hope that having these guys, it's an excitement. It's an opportunity to showcase what you can do on a European stage in front of a global audience. But a lot of that, I think, is down to the club being able to create big home games and create an atmosphere and create a sense of occasion around these Europa League games and create a sense of excitement. This is our year. Let's try and do something in Europe. Let's make this the start of a journey that's going to be special. And I remember Mourinho at Roma, the year they won the Conference League. I mean, the teams they were playing in the Conference League group stages were just, obviously pretty small teams, but Mourinho managed to convince them that that was what was happening. We are going to win this tournament. This is the start of a big journey, blah, blah, blah. And as a result, they did get big crowds for all those games, and they managed to do it because the fan base kind of bought into it. And so I think it can happen, but it requires a bit of, you need to sell it to the people a bit.
Yeah. Switching to tomorrow's night game, Lazio-Milan. Lazio didn't start very well the season, but I mean, it doesn't look Milan start better than us, right? A terrible performance. The truth is, they probably didn't deserve to lose the last game, right? They were playing. They had more chances, but conceded a couple of stupid goals. And what about Cancellieri? I mean, did we made the wrong move? We should have kept him.
I do wonder if it's going to be one of those, isn't it, by the end of the season? Typical. But no, I didn't see the Parma game. I mean, from what I heard, Parma did play well and deserve to beat them. And then obviously the first game against Torino was pretty spectacular, with needing the 2 goals in stoppage time in order to equalize. And they were, well, I don't know if it's luck, because good on them for pulling out the fire like that, but they've got off to a bad start. I do think there's a lot more to come from that team. It's obviously been slow start under Fonseca, but they are a team with a hell of a lot of weapons in attack. They're a team who, despite the results, seem to actually be creating quite a lot of dangerous opportunities and openings. And therefore, they're a team that worry me a lot, because Lazio defensively did not look convincing whatsoever in Udine. Lazio defensively didn't look convincing against Venezia, I have to say. And those two teams are not famous for their attacking prowess. So I think that we shouldn't let Milan's slow start trick us into thinking that this is a terrible Milan team that is that we're getting at a perfect opportunity. I think we're going to have to see something from Baroni here to try and tighten things up a bit.
You mentioned the slow start. Well, Lazio have to do the same. In the first 2 games, the first 15 minutes have been dreadful. We conceded 2 goals in the first 5 minutes in both games. So that's terrible. We cannot allow this to happen against Milan, because probably the game would be already over if we start like that. I think Milan is a good team. What I would say is that, seeing what Fonseca did with Roma, I think his team are a little bit off balance. They're very dangerous when they attack, but they concede a lot. And this Lazio team is faster than in the past. We have faster players, so we should really take advantage of this, right? Taking advantage of this off-balance team and try to push when we have the ball in counter-attacks with Lazzari, Noslin, Isaacs, and etc., etc. I think that's our biggest opportunity to win the game, right?
I think so. I mean, it could be a pretty open game. I mean, it could be quite an exciting game because both teams are probably more comfortable attacking than defending, and they like to move at speed. It'll be interesting, the selection, I think, in attack. Do you see Baroni going with the same thing again? I mean, there's been these reports in the last couple of days about how he's trying Dia and Tati together up front in training sessions, and that to me seems quite a risky move for a game like this. I don't know how do you see him kind of picking this team, or what are the big questions around it?
I think Noslin didn't convince me in the first two games. I should pick Isaacsen for tomorrow's night game. I think that's the first thing. I hope Nuno Tavares can play, because even though he played only 23 minutes in a friendly game, he looked much sharper than our left back. So that would be another thing. And no, I don't think I would risk Dia and Castellanos together. And to be honest with you, I would give Dia the start, but I don't know if that would kill Tati Castellanos' season. But yeah, and if Castrovilli is ready, probably I would try to start him in midfield. So yeah, I would change a couple of things, because the starting 11 in the last two games didn't convince me. And by the way, even the substitution, I mean, you're losing 2-0 against Udinese and you take off Marusic and bring in Isai. That doesn't make sense at all, right?
I mean, I think the midfield, he needs to find a balance in that midfield. And again, it comes back to this thing of not having the stars in that midfield anymore. Means it's quite complicated trying to work out where the balance lies, what the best combinations are, who best complements each other's attributes. And Guendouzi seems kind of nailed on with Ravella at the moment, Deli Bashiru, but I don't know if it's enough. I'm not sure if that midfield three is going to be running games for Lazio against bigger teams, or if it's offering enough in both phases to protect the defense well enough.
Alasdair, we always give for granted Guendouzi is going to start, but can I be honest with you? After Sarri left, his performance have dropped. Even with Tudor, we didn't see the same Guendouzi we saw with Sarri. And even in the first two games, I didn't see the old Guendouzi. So, especially against Udinese, I was looking for more a leader who could step up and, lead our team to victory. Not only he didn't do that, but the second goal, that's terrible defending from Guendouzi. I didn't expect him doing that. I mean, he's a fighter. I would expect Guendouzi, okay, if I'm not able to take the ball away, I will foul you and not allow to get in the box, which he didn't. So, I think nobody mentioned it, but probably the biggest delusion so far is Guendouzi.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, I guess because a disappointment by Guendouzi's standards is being quite invisible as well. He's not influencing games in the way we want him to. And yeah, I think just between them and you mentioned Castrovilli, and I think that Castrovilli is. I like the signing. I can't quite work out how he fits into this team and how you can get him into this team and keep that balance. Because when you talk about putting him into the midfield against Milan, and he's not a guy who's going to be working his arse off in defence, and I'm just not sure how we're going to get him into that team in a way that we can protect the back four. And clearly that back four needs protection. I don't want this to be an ultra defensive team, but clearly they need more organization and they need more protection.
Uh,
And the
don't you think?
balance, we're always, I think that was always going to happen. New coach, new team. The balance will take time to find. But at the moment, I would be hesitant to put Castrovilli into that team because I'm not convinced it would work, to be honest, as the team currently is.
Don't you think there's too much lack of quality that we need Castrovilli there?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I do get that, but I think maybe you then need to kind of change to 4-2-3-1 or something. Give him a number 10 role and have a couple of guys behind him who aren't pushing as much. Because I think if you have him playing as a mezzala, it's I don't know. I'm not sure how much cover we're going to get. I think I am worried about this Milan attack and what it can do.
Yeah, but he's not like Luis Alberto. He's able to defend. He's not a real number 10. So I think the question mark is it fit enough to do it? Because that's what's the biggest concern we have. But yeah, I think
there's so many questions around this team. This is the thing. And there's I mean, another guy I wanted to mention to you about is Isaacson. Do you think this is I know the goal he scored was ultimately meaningless, a consolation very late on. But it is a moment for him, and he's had so few moments.
Yeah.
So I feel like he has to build on that. I don't know if that'll lead to an opportunity to start the game. It'll probably at least lead to an opportunity to get off the bench, but he has to seize these moments, these opportunities where he's coming on and making an impact, where he's influencing games, getting goals. I really want to see something more from Isaacson, and that might have seemed like a nothing moment against Udinese, given the result, but I don't think it was for him.
No. I think it wasn't for the team. I mean, one of the issue I have with Noslin is he missed so many opportunities. Friendly games, the first two Serie A games, he had opportunity, and he didn't take them. Isaacson hadn't a lot because he played far less than Noslin, but took the only one he had. So I think that's important. And if Baroni doesn't start him tomorrow, I would be really surprised. Because again, this is not a team that you say, hey, Castellanos scored 8 goals, Noslin 5, etc. No. The score at the moment is 31. So, and the other strikers pretty much 0, right? So we need to have played a score. We said it a lot. Without Ciro, we need everybody scoring because we won't have the number 9 that scores 20, 25 goals. Well, I hope Dia becomes that player, but at the moment, he's not fit enough. So, yeah, I would give that opportunity to Isaacson. The other thing, Alasdair, is, and then we can wrap it up, I loved the signing of Chona. I thought he's young, he's very talented. He proved to have quality at Salernitana. But with Nosley moving back to the right, I think he has very few opportunity, which doesn't make sense to me. Chauna is another very interesting player. Now he's a little bit blocked, right? He needs to play on the left side, but you cannot take off Zaccagni. So I don't know what they're doing with Chauna.
Well, I think you can take off Zaccagni. I mean, I think now that he's adopted the captaincy and the number 10 shirt, and he's been given he's been branded as this team superstar. But let's not forget, his form hasn't been brilliant in recent years. So I don't think we can just assume Zaccagni is the guy now who's the new Alberto or the new Milinkovic, whatever, because he's not. He's not done anything near the level those guys produce for Lazio. I think it's good to give him that responsibility in these things in order to try and encourage him to get there. But he's not there yet. So I don't think we can regard him as someone who can't be subbed off in games. I think he should be, and I think he will be. So yeah, I think Chona, there are opportunities in that front three because I think there will be rotation as time goes on. Probably Baroni's just been wanting to try and settle the first couple of games to try and get a bit of consistency there, and especially before the market closes, not really knowing who's coming and going and what he's going to be left with. But yeah, I do like him. I do like him too. So it would be a shame for him to miss out. But I think over the course of the season, like we're saying with Europa League and 8 group games and so on. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for game time over the course of a season.
Yeah, a little bit like Guendouzi. Zaccagni, after the second year of Sarri, didn't show nothing. Last year was one of the reasons why Lazio played so badly, finished far away from the Champions League spot. So we're going to see. Tomorrow is a very, very important game. I think it will tell us much more about this team and our chances in the Serie A. So we'll be back Monday to review Lazio Milan. Thanks, Alasdair, for joining me.
Let me just say one final thing. I think the other special thing about tomorrow will be the dedication to Sven-Göran Eriksson. And if anyone hasn't heard it yet, Vittorio did a very nice and very moving, emotional tribute to Sven on our channel, which is worth listening to, because obviously a huge and very special figure in the club's history. And to be honest, for me, and I imagine for a lot of international Lazio fans, a guy who we probably wouldn't be following the club without, because it was his team that made so many people pay attention to Lazio and what they were doing in Europe and the success they were having. And also, his ability as a coach mixed with his personality and his geniality and all the things you mentioned about his management style, but also the way that nobody had a bad word to say about him. So I just wanted to say something of my own about Sven and how that's something we need to keep in mind on Saturday in this game as well, and hopefully another motivation for the team to go and win it in his memory.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thanks for your kind words on Sven-Göran Eriksson. And let's hope they also remember what happened last year in Lazio Milan. That was a disaster. Di Bello rewriting the football rules for that game. So let's hope that Guendouzi, for example, remembers the red card he got last year, because that was terrible.
There's a bad history with refereeing in Lazio Milan games.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to Vittorio's Monday referee rant.
yeah, I can see it coming. Thanks again, Alasdair. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll be back Monday night. Monday at lunch probably. Take care, everybody.